we are now entering the final month of the baseball season. The trade deadline is behind us, and let's talk about some of the favorites going into this final season. You got the graphic up there if you are watching us. If the season ended today, here's how we're looking in the National League. You've got the Dodgers playing the Rockies in the first round. The Padres play the Phillies. It's the Phillies who have been red hot and basically have an entirely new bullpen right now. The Braves will play the Marlins, and the Cubs will play the Cardinals, renewing that rivalry. In the American League, you've got the Rays and the Blue Jays, Cleveland versus Houston. The A's would take on the Twins, and the Chicago White Sox would actually host the New York Yankees right now. That White Sox team is, to me, if I'm rooting for a World Series right now, give me White Sox and versus the Padres. That would just be so fun.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I said on an earlier podcast, I actually put a future bet on the White Sox winning the World Series. So I'm down with that.
Yeah. Rooting for that for a lot of reasons.
It was something crazy. I think it was 40-1 when I put the bet down. So
it's a good bet.
I very rarely do future bets like that, but I just looked at that roster and knowing that Robert, whatever you want to call him, he was going to be on the opening day roster.
Yep.
And the kid's electric. I mean, I think he had a walk-off homer over the weekend. And the surrounding cast on that team, that offensively, and you got guys like Giolito, who threw a no-hitter.
Yeah.
I mean,
looked electric when he was doing it.
It's crazy how teams can just turn it around that fast with, couple good draft picks, couple good trades here and there, and just a couple good international signing, and you have the making of a dynasty.
And a lot of young guys who have been playing together, coming up together through the minor leagues. We saw Houston do it. We've seen a few other teams try that formula. Now Chicago is that next team to try to emulate the Astro formula, albeit maybe with a little less cheating, but they are definitely trying to follow that mold, and seems to be paying off. Lucas Giolito looked electric the other day. So let's start with the American League. So the White Sox, is that going to be your pick then to represent the American League, or do you think it's going to be someone else?
That's my homer pick right now.
Yeah.
If I probably didn't place a bet on it, I probably would have said the Yankees on paper would be the obvious choice. I think in spring training, when we were all talking about this, I think it was a consensus that it was going to be Dodgers-Yankees. Now I'm looking at White Sox and Padres.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to see that. The team I would not discount right now, and I think a team that is made more for the postseason, is the Tampa Bay Rays. They currently have 3 starting pitchers, basically. That's it. And really, only one of them is doing really well. Tyler Glasnow had a terrific start last night in New York. Had a no-hitter, I think, through 6 innings. But right now they've got Blake Snell and then not much else. But I think there's enough talent there that in a 3-game series especially, do you want to face Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow for 2 of those 3 games? I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, and you're right. Like that, when it comes down to a series like that, if you have 3 top of the rotation type of arms, it's tough. It's tough to win a series against those guys. So
yeah, they have as good a shot, I think, about as anybody. And that lineup is one of the most consistent in baseball. Brandon Lau might be the MVP of the American League right now. So I would not count out the Tampa Bay Rays right now. I think the Oakland A's still have a good chance. That bullpen has been lights out, but the starting pitching, even with the acquisition of Mike Minor, it does leave a little wanting. It doesn't jump off the page at me. Luzardo's been good, but there's a lot of guys underperforming with that team right now. So yeah, if I had to go with a choice of the 2 teams that think come out of it, I think Tampa and the White Sox. Heck, Lucas Giolito and the way Dallas Keuchel's been pitching for much of the season, wouldn't want to face them in a short series as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like that Rays pick. I mean, that there's a real good chance. I mean, I like that. And you never know. I mean, it's such an odd season. A lot of players a lot of them, if it's a regular season, we've been like what, $120 under a belt at this point, $130.
Mm-hmm.
You got some guys starting to break down, some pitchers starting to break down, some hitters starting to break down. A lot of these guys seem to be pretty fresh right now.
Yeah, it's weird that this final month is like, it's like mid-season for a lot of these guys, where now they're just hitting their stride.
Yep.
I saw the Brewers are a team that I feel like is outside of the National League playoff picture right now, and they have guys like Christian Yelich is batting under 200. That's not going to last. He's going to have a much better September. I can pretty much take that to the bank. Christian Yelich will have a good September. He's too good, and he's not the only guy like that. There's a lot of other players like that throughout baseball who are usually on fire, usually among the best in baseball, and it's just not clicking. That's going to change, I think, in September, and this whole playoff picture, I think, is completely going to change before the season, we get to the postseason. And I say that, and I think, probably the Yankees just end up being the American League champions anyway, and we make all these fun, sexy picks, and then it's, just going to be like Yankees-Dodgers or something like that. So, oh well.
Yeah, I kind of expected to see some of those players like Yelich, and, I mean, players have been in the league for 5, 6, 7 years. Baseball players are superstitious. They are creatures of habit. And when you put a season that doesn't feel or look like any other season that they've ever been a part of, you're going to see players struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you're seeing that with Yelich. He may have the worst 2 months of his career, but it's not going to define his career by any means. I truly expected this. That's why I think you see a lot of younger players who haven't been in the league and haven't created those habits and have certain situations like the traveling completely different, where they're playing completely different, no fans in the stands completely different. Like everything about this is different. So.
Yeah, and I think that it's something I said at the beginning of the season, too. As we move on, we'll talk a little bit about some of the National League contenders. Teams that are really young and don't know any better, I think, are actually going to do well this season. And I think that's been proven with teams like the Padres, teams like the White Sox, heck, teams like the Marlins, who it looked like their season was over the moment it started with the COVID outbreak, and they have taken that sort of that youth where they don't know any better, and then the whole COVID thing where it was like, well, now it's just like whatever happens. Let's just go out and play. We're just happy to even be playing, and they're just taking the ball and run with it. I think that's really benefited these teams that just are like, they're not in their heads about it because they haven't been playing at the highest level for that long. And let's talk about some of those National League contenders. As I mentioned, the Dodgers are the best team in baseball right now. There's no question about it. The Chicago Cubs have been very good in the National League Central. The NL East is kind of up in the air right now. The Braves got off to an incredibly hot start, but you've got the Marlins, you've got the Phillies, who've been a lot better. You've got the defending champions there who are at the bottom of the division, but Juan Soto's been on fire. I want to give something a nice, interesting pick here, but the Dodgers have been so far and away the best team. They are so well built. Their rotation is a completely different rotation from a year ago, but it's also guys who have been expected to be the next big Dodger pitchers. Walker Buehler's out right now, but you've got Dustin May there, and you've got a lot of interesting young players there. And, of course, Mookie Betts has totally lived up to the hype. So, to me, it's the Dodgers or bust in the National League.
Yeah, I jumped the gun. I thought I was going one for each league on the last one, so I apologize about that. So now I can basically bring up the fact that Padres is who I mean, after all the trades, young team, I'm pushing for them. I actually want to see a lot of those young players get a little bit of playoff experience under their belt, even if they don't go to the World Series, even if they don't win it all. Get them a little experience going forward in the next year. The Dodgers, going to be a tough team to beat. I can't believe I'm going to say this being a Giants fan, but I'm actually pushing for Clayton Kershaw to have an amazing run in the playoffs.
Wow.
It's tricky. I like Kershaw, and I think he gets a bad rap. He's drafted by the Dodgers, signed an extension, going to be a Dodger for pretty much his whole career. I don't think he's going to leave anywhere. He is Mr. Dodger, best pitcher in the league at one point. He probably on the back nine of his career now, but he's still amazing. As we saw him play against the Giants last week, and he basically shut him down because that's what he does. But he has this stigma in the playoffs that it's going to tarnish his career. It's going to tarnish his legacy if he doesn't get one. If he doesn't, and I mean, he has to do similar to what Bumgarner did for the Giants and just take the team on his back and be like, you guys are going to win a World Series, and it's going to be single-handedly because of me. I would love to see that for Kershaw.
He is pitching like a man on a mission right now for this season. When he's been on the mound and been healthy, he's looked really good. He's looked as good as he's looked the last few years. And, yeah, when he's ready to go for the postseason, I think he is going to be a different pitcher this time out. And I think a lot of the things that have sort of haunted him in his postseason career, at least for the last couple of years, were not entirely his fault. I point to last year when he wasn't he brought in? I think it was Game 5 I think it was Game 5 of the NLDS. Yeah. And he was brought in relief. And it was this really curious move. Like, why are you throwing in Kershaw right now? This feels like a weird, it felt like a weird move for Dave Roberts to do that when he had very capable arms of the bullpen who are used to that sort of role. And there have been other times where, Kershaw maybe gives up the one big hit, but it's like, you look at the stat line, he still's like 6 or 7 innings, he gave up 2 runs. Like, you can't really ask for much else than that. But you're right. He's got to do something big in this postseason to kick that narrative forever.
I'm glad you brought up that Dave Roberts move. It was so curious that Dave Roberts almost lost his job.
Yeah.
There was rumors going around that Dave Roberts was going to get fired, and Dave Roberts was probably going to be the Giants' the new manager.
That's right.
Because I think without a doubt, if Dave Roberts gets let go, the Giants swoop him up, and he is the manager of the Giants.
No question. Yeah. Unless Gabe Kapler somehow takes this team to the playoffs next year or heck this year. I almost feel like that's a inevitability right now.
Yeah. But I remember, it was crazy. It was crazy why would Dave Roberts put Clayton Kershaw in that position knowing mentally where he's been in the playoffs? It was almost like set up for failure.
Yeah.
But I would love nothing more for Kershaw to be able to put all that behind him and really have a great performance in the playoffs. And I think if he does pitch lights out like he is capable of doing, the Dodgers are almost unbeatable.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It could have a very similar effect to Strasburg last year, to a lesser extent Strasburg last year, but there were, for years, the Nationals can't win in the postseason. They have all this talent. Strasburg is this number 1 pick who we all remember the year that first year they went to the postseason with him, and they held him back, and it ended up costing them. So last year was sort of this redemption story for him to change the narrative, to change his story, to change his legacy. That will definitely be at the forefront of the Dodgers and Kershaw's mind, I think, in this postseason. But, man, I really want that White Sox-Padre World Series. And I think MLB would like it, too. Even though I'm sure they would like L.A. versus New York more for ratings, I actually think the higher-ups that be at MLB would actually be all for a Padres-White Sox matchup to showcase all the great young talent.
It would be so exciting, like you were saying, to see all that young talent. And, yeah, there would be probably some pretty bonehead plays in a World Series like that, some questionable base running and maybe some bad defense here and there. But there would be some amazing plays as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, I would like for both those teams to get into the playoffs, have a little bit of a run, and just get that playoff experience under their belt. So when they face it again, because playoff baseball, it's a whole different monster.
Yeah, they will call it the Big Game James World Series, all thanks to that one trade. That's why we're there. Oh, man, if only. That would be something. The White Sox, of course, traded Fernando Tatis to the Padres, and here we are.
Yep.
So the playoffs are going to be different this year. We did hear some reports as a couple stories here before we wrap things up. We've heard some reports. It hasn't been 100% confirmed, but Jeff Passan of ESPN, I think he was on the Pat McAfee show, and basically confirmed it, that MLB is exploring a bubble option, a la what the NBA and the NHL are doing. Probably more closely resembling what the NHL is doing, where there will be two different hub areas, not hub cities, where you will have the American League playoffs take place at Dodger Stadium and at Petco Park in San Diego. The National League playoffs would take place at the new Globe Life Field in Arlington and Minute Maid Park in Houston, and the World Series will be played at a neutral site, Globe Life Field in Arlington, as sort of a consolation prize for opening your brand new ballpark when absolutely nobody can come to the stadium. Well, hey, at least you get to host the World Series. I think this is a no-brainer for baseball to be doing this. It's apparently they're going to have the teams in hotels in the last week anyway, regardless if you're making the playoffs, just to be sure whichever teams do make the playoffs are isolated for that extra week until they can get the postseason started. I think it'll be fun to have a neutral site World Series for a year. I'm not sure this is something that is I would like very much in the future. I have seen some people throw it around that even in the future, maybe let's have a neutral site World Series. But I think for the meantime, this will be an interesting exercise for MLB. And I think they've got the right cities and the right ballparks chosen for this experiment.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good plan. It's a great idea. I mean, I could just imagine, like, your team makes it to the playoffs, and then unfortunately somebody on your team, and hopefully not like one of your marquee or a couple marquee players on your team, come down with COVID. I mean, your season's pretty much going to be over. They're not going to put the playoffs on pause for one team. They're just going to make you have to replace those players and just figure it out. That would be a bummer. That would definitely be a bummer. So I like the idea of having that bubble and just trying to keep everybody healthy and get through our season, and then maybe in 2021 get back to baseball regular and sports regular. Exactly.
Yeah, I think you've seen so many, even with what's going on with the Oakland A's right now, where I think it was like they are, as they put it in the press releases, over an abundance of caution, where it is not like these huge outbreaks like you were seeing, I think, earlier in the season, but baseball is learning on the fly, which, you can argue that, until it's forever and ever and ever that they probably should have done a little more planning and not been doing this all on the fly. But you see that they are being a lot more strict about it, whereas maybe if this situation that's happening with the A's now happen in, let's say, July, maybe they wouldn't be postponing these games as much as they are. So baseball just wants to avoid that completely. Totally get it. And it'll be interesting to see the World Series at that ballpark in Texas, which I will just say right now, from the outside, is the ugliest looking thing in baseball. It is awful looking. Inside, it looks beautiful. As you can see a picture of it. We've got it up if you watch the video. But on the outside, just looks like this giant aluminum shed in the middle of Texas, and I'm not about it. I'm not into it.
So it is. I've actually seen it in person.
Okay.
So we were at, I think it was early February. We did an event with Topps, and it was a million card rip party, and it was basically launching 2020 Topps Series 1 baseball. And I don't know exactly. I heard rumors that initially it was going to be at the new Rangers Stadium, but it wasn't quite finished and ready to have people go in yet. So they basically had us do it at Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and you can see it right across the way.
Which is basically right across the street. So At one point, we basically all kind of walked over and just walked around the new stadium and just kind of looked at it. It looked like a new stadium, but you're right. It didn't really blow me away. It wasn't like, walking by Petco Park or walking by AT&T or seeing like Fenway or Camden Yards, like those majestic, beautiful stadiums. Didn't have that vibe to it.
Yeah, I feel like to go off on a tangent about ballparks here, but that craze in the late 90s, early 2000s to like emulate an Ebbets Field style of like downtown ballpark, the brick facades and everything. Camden, Coors Field is like that. Obviously, Oracle Park in San Francisco. Why did we get away from that?
I have no idea.
That's such a good look.
It's a good question because all those parks that you mentioned
Timeless.
are just amazing.
Yeah.
And those are the parks that, again, we were talking about this earlier, that even if the team is underperforming or a bad team, they're going to get 40 to 50,000 people in all those ballparks on a weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cool place to go to, watch a game, and just take in the atmosphere.
I am going to go out on a limb. I'm going to blame the Marlins for this one. They started this whole, like, stadium of the future, like, very odd retractable roof that, like, comes out and, like, hangs over. It's the same look that the Rangers Stadium has, and I kind of liked the quirkiness of Marlins Park. I wish they had kept the home run statue in the middle of center field because it was so awful. I loved it, but I'm blaming them for the future of baseball parks. Everyone's emulating them now for some reason.
So,
big boxy.
Off the dome, unrehearsed, unscripted, what is the dumbest thing that you've ever seen in a Major League Baseball stadium? Like, in the way of construction.
Yeah. That Marlins thing is right up there. But I will say, as great as when it opened, as great as Pac Bell Park was it Rusty the Robot in right field? They had that big animatronic that was about 20 feet tall that would, when you made a great catch, would run out and dive and would act like he's hitting home runs. Horrifying. If you can look it up, it is the thing of nightmares. And I'll say, like, I'm a huge fan of, like, Disneyland, and I love a good animatronic, but this thing was, like, an affront to God. It was awful. It was, as beautiful as that park was, that thing had to go immediately.
I gotta see it. I have no idea. I got it when we're done with this. I gotta see a video of it.
The company that made it still has a website and a whole informational page about it. I could not believe it. There's a YouTube video about it. So if you want to look it up, I believe Rusty the Robot, Pac Bell Park. It's have at it.
Mine is. It was Minute Maid Field, and it was the hill.
The hill's the worst.
In center field.
Oh, God. That stupid hill.
I don't know whose idea that was. Obviously looking to tear some ACL, PCL, and MCLs running up a hill. I remember Dusty Baker telling his players, do not run up that hill and try to get a ball. If it is over your head, just wait for it to roll down to you. Do not run up there and try to catch a ball.
That's a good point. Just the gravity is going to roll down, and you might actually be able to play it off a little easier.
Because imagine if you're running full speed, and players are their heads down, they're running, and they're looking up at the ball. If you just start running, and then all of a sudden you're just going up a hill, man. You're looking to tear something.
Exactly. It's amazing that more people did not get career-ending injuries from that thing. Wasn't there a flagpole in playing area?
It was unbelievable. Like,
for a little bit.
It was almost like it was a joke. They're just like, okay, what we're gonna do is a hill would be funny to put in center field, and I could see a boardroom, and they're just like, "Yeah, that's hilarious." And then somebody wrote it down and just went out and did it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I was half paying attention, and I thought you guys actually wanted a hill in center field."
I mean, the list of things with that ballpark when it first opened, obviously the Crawford boxes are still there, and it's like, Little League Park. It's so close. I kind of like the train. It's a little kitschy, but I kind of like it. The hill was awful, but should we have expected great decision makings from the people who decided to name it Enron Field to start off with? Maybe not.